bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio. For the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? Today's Monday, April 13th, 2020. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? I hope you had a great weekend. We did. That's right. Well, I worked, but we got a little time in. We're locked down just like the rest of you. So there you go. And I'm wondering when I'm going to do a show with a face mask. Should I do it just for grins? All right. What an amazing week we have got set up for all of you tonight, right here on this program. Adam Apollo, right here. Adam Apollo joins us. We are going to have a full-on conversation about physics, science, and extraterrestrial intelligence. That is tonight on this program. Tomorrow night on this program, joining us from Israel, Uri Geller. Yeah, man. And I'm going to say this to everybody. I spoke to Uri today for about 15 minutes, maybe a little longer, but somewhere in there. And what a great man! You guys just wait. Tomorrow night, Uri Geller. Been waiting for this for a while, so he joins us tomorrow. And Wednesday night, the Beard of Knowledge, Randall Carlson, right here on this very program. How was that, kids? You ready for this? Oh, man, what a week. I mean, after last week, the week before, right? Just gets better and better around here. And then we'll cap off the week with another Thursday night, Fader night, with open lines all night long. So there you go. What a great week. What a great week. Ah, man. All right, let's get straight to it. Lots to do tonight. Adam Apollo joins us. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, at JChurchRadio, and the Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. You can come over there and hang out. We have 2 chat rooms open, one over at Spreaker, one over at KGRA The Planet. And also your questions and comments, just post it to hashtag F2BQ. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. A quick mention, I did Coast to Coast over the weekend. And Saturday night at Coast. Now, I know you guys have seen, the pictures of the studio and things and how it's positioned there. It's a little different than here in the bunker. Here in the bunker, I've got everything laid out, just around me. At Coast, it's a bit different, but I've kind of adapted, all of the fade to black things that we do here on this program. I've kind of merged them over to Coast, and one of them is Twitter. And watching all of you Fadernauts hang out with the Coast audience on Twitter, and it's a bit different because I can't focus. At Coast, it's a bit different in its format. And also, Twitter over there, when I say it's on my left, it's on my left. It sits over here. So I can't look at it during the show. In front of me at Coast is the studio with the engineer and the producer over there, and they're working, and people are talking to me in my ear, and things are going on and stuff. So it's different. Plus, I've got that complex phone system there that I have to deal with. So it's a little different. But during the breaks over at Coast, I just turn and I step over because I'm standing, and it's a big round thing with all these buttons and faders and control things in front. I don't touch any of it, but it's there for some reason. I guess if the engineer gets sick and goes home, I somehow could still do the show, I think. Anyway, so I go over to my left, and I hang out on Twitter, and I'm watching all of you Fadernauts. You guys with the Coast audience hanging out together. It is so much fun. It's a little slice of home. It is. And I want to thank you for that. It was just a great show on Coast from beginning to end. Dr. Greer was amazing. And how about Deep Prasad? Deep Prasad, and he was in Toronto, which means he was actually on with us from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., bringing the big brain stuff. He was absolutely fantastic, and so thank you, Deep, for that. It was just a great show. Which brings me to today. So let me get all of my stuff out of the way. Hello to everybody on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Spreaker, TuneIn, KGRA, TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio. Who am I? I'm leaving a couple of things off, but hello to everybody out there. Okay. All right. I keep mentioning it. I'm not, I don't think I'm ever going to stop. And that is, it is time to get your immune system in check. Quit playing around, quit procrastinating. It's just one of the things that you need to do. And it's simple and fun when you have a company like Get the Tea and getthetea.com, where you can go and just get everything that you need to make sure your body is correct. And you're going to be so happy that you did it. Visit getthetea.com. And when you get over there, go to their specials page and get loaded up on, what I take. I take moringa drops, and I take pine bark drops, and I take olive leaf extract drops every single day. I drink the super strength tea every day. And of course, CBD. So I do all of that and other things too as well. I take multivitamins and things. And you can get everything that you need over at getthetea.com. That's it. Just go. You'll be so happy. 3 months from now, you're going to go, wow, these changes are amazing. Getthetea.com. And when you go to checkout, use the promo code FADER, FADER. You will get free shipping on all orders over $50. Visit getthetea.com. All right, you'll be so happy. Next time around that this kind of stuff starts hitting, you're going to feel, what's the word? What's the word I want to use? You're going to feel cocky. You're going to feel strong. You are, okay? getthetea.com. And I also want to welcome our latest sponsor. Billy Carson just launched his TV network, his internet TV network, and it is Forbidden Knowledge TV. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the website. He's got over 1,000 programs and episodes up and ready for you to check out. You can do everything for free for 3 days. You get a 3-day trial. And go and click through and check out what he's got going on over there. The banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I don't have any promo codes, nothing like that. Just sign up. Just go and do it. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. It's amazing. And I want to thank Billy Carson for not only supporting this show, but for being here and spreading that knowledge, the forbidden knowledge, to this community. River Moon Coffee is now available on Amazon. They have their own Amazon store. And if you are an Amazon Prime Fade or Not, you also get free shipping. Stuff's already discounted, and you're an Amazon Prime member, you're a Fade or Not, you get free shipping. If you use the promo code Jimmy RMC, all caps, Jimmy RMC, you're going to get an additional 5% off of your already discounted pricing and free shipping. So go and visit the River Moon Coffee Amazon store. It's a lot of work to get all of that stuff set up. And just like you're imagining, okay, I want you to understand this. River Moon has to ship to Amazon, to their warehouses, Fade to Black blend. That's how that works. It goes. You have to get all of that set up and all of the other River Moon Coffee stuff. That goes to Amazon. It ships there. When you order, Amazon's got those robots. Comes in, plugs the Fade to Black blend on the thing, puts it in a box, and ships it to you. All of that had to get set up. And so I don't know how they do it and the discounted prices and everything else. I don't know. But go and visit their Amazon store today, Fade to Black blend. And, of course, we introduced our new blend. It is called Game Changer. Game Changer. Yeah. Breaking news. Remember Oumuamua? Remember that? Remember Oumuamua? Our first interstellar visitor from space happened 2 years ago. You remember that? Well, a report was released today by Yun Zhang. That's a person, by the way, of the National Astronomical Observatories of the Chinese Academies of Sciences, and suggesting now that it was probably a fragment of a larger body that was torn apart by gravitational forces during a close flyby of its own native star. I don't know what star that would have been and how far away. Think about it. Alpha Centauri, 4.5 light years away. And anything else, it starts to rocket up in numbers, right? Well, anyway. And it happened to choose this solar system and fly by. Anyway. All right. Let's just say that that's fine. But, except, Oumuamua displayed non-gravitational acceleration. That's right. As it cruised by us, and gravitational acceleration is, when you fly by a planet or a star, right? This time around, that motion can't be attributed to those tugs by the sun or Jupiter or Uranus. No. Such motion can be caused by cometary outgassing. That's a possibility. And that pushes an object, like thrusters on spacecraft. And that makes sense, too. Oumuamua displayed no signs of outgassing and no visible tail or coma. Now, I don't know what Oumuamua was, but rocks driving around space don't take turns and accelerate on their own. I'm just saying. I don't know what it was, but I don't think it was a rock. All right. Other news. President Daniel Ortega of Nicaragua has not been seen in public for over 40 days, and nobody knows why. The last time the 74-year-old leader was seen in person was during a televised military event back on February 21st. He was seen virtually on March 12th when he participated in an online conference call with the heads of state from Central America's system of integration to discuss the pandemic. Other than that, he's disappeared. Nobody knows why. The StarWorks and Artificial UFOs and Artificial Intelligence Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, November 5th through the 8th is still on. Visit StarWorksUSA.com for tickets and info. Grant Cameron's going to be there. Paul Hynek, James Fox, his new film, The Phenomenon. Alan Stivelman, Witness of Another World, great documentary with Jacques Vallée. All of that is going on. And remember, I'll be hosting, I'll be speaking, I'm going to do a lot of things there. And Rita's going to be there, our entire Fade to Black crew. So just go to StarWorksUSA.com for tickets and info and everything you need right there on their website. Also, Disclosure Fest, which is scheduled for June 20th here in Los Angeles, downtown at the historic Los Angeles Park, is still on. We are in contact and communication with the state of California and the city of Los Angeles, and they are saying, for now, the event can happen. Now, last year, we had around 20,000 attendees. We're anticipating 20,000 attendees. One-day event, and it is free. So just go to disclosurefest.org for everything that you need. All of the initiatives and everything that we do there is over at disclosurefest.org. If there is any changes, we have another date that we can use, which is at the end of August. Okay, and we'll make those announcements right here on this program. Okay. Where am I at? Let's just get the show cracking. Let me go straight to it. Hellboy, Ron Perlman. Today, can you believe it? Ron Perlman is 70 years old. That is unbelievable to me. Al Green, the Al Green, today is 74. Al Green lives in Memphis. When I was in Memphis, I was, on some street. I was with somebody, and I look over and I see this house, one story, nice, big piece of land, and I see what appeared to be was a green Rolls Royce parked in front. I see it across this line. You don't see Rolls Royces or Bentleys or anything like that. I'm like, who lives there? And the person driving, his name was Bones. That's Al Green's house. I'm like, no way. Really? Al Green. Al Green today, 74 years old, living in Memphis. Base God Lewis Johnson, the man, is 55 years old. No, he's not 55. He can't be. He's got to be 75, I would think. That's a typo. You remember Strawberry Letter number 23? All right, I listened to that in 1972, 1973 LP. I was 9 years old. There's no way that that's a typo. I apologize, Lewis, but happy birthday anyway. Wasps, Randy Piper. Yeah, great guitar player. Today is 62 years old. Our dead guy's birthday today is Hillel Slavic. 1962 to 1988, died at the age of 26. Founding member and guitarist for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Hillel was one of the great musicians to come out of Hollywood and Fairfax High School in the 80s. And from 1982 to 1988, he managed to change the world in 6 short years. He was an amazing player. He was great on stage. He was funny. Wow, right? Well, he died in his apartment after a phone call to his brother of a heroin overdose on June 25th, 1988, at the age of 26. They went to Europe. They did a tour. Red Hot Chili Peppers, comes back, takes a few weeks off, kind of drops out of sight. And his journal, which was published as a book, his journal was blank for those 2 or 3 weeks. And he called his brother on the 24th, and June 24th, and the police discovered his body on the 27th, determined that he died on June 25th at the age of 26. Sad. And I hope he's listening. Happy birthday, Hillel Slavic. On this day in history, 1970, big day. It went down. Apollo 13, its oxygen tank explodes, and astronaut James Lovell reports back with, Houston, we have a problem. On this day That's right, 1970. Fader fact. In 2003, Michael Jackson went grocery shopping in a closed-down supermarket with all of the other people in the supermarket being actors and friends dressed up as shoppers. That's right. He said he just wanted to experience what it is like to be an ordinary person. That's right. That is your Fader fact. Can you imagine? It's kind of surreal, isn't it? That you would do that just to see what it's like because you've never done it? Amazing. It did. It happened in 2003. All right, tonight, very special guest, Adam Apollo is here. We are going to have a conversation about physics, about science, and extraterrestrial intelligence. Tomorrow, right here, Uri Geller joins us from Israel. Wednesday night, Randall Carlson, the beard of knowledge. Randall Carlson is here. Thursday night is another Fader night, and we will be taking your calls all night long. Okay, now let me hit this River Moon coffee. The best, by the way. Have you played Diablo 3? I'm just saying. I've been dreaming Diablo 3 now for a week. Thought we finished the game like 3 times. And they've always got another. We killed Diablo. Rita and I were playing couch co-op. And killed Diablo, and it turned out that wasn't the end of the game. It's like, man. We're going to finish it. We're going to turn around. We're going to start the next level. Kicks it up a degree. Nightmare. I think we're going to go through. Just continue the slashing. Anyway, what made me think of that? I know that last Thursday, I promised you a complete and focused report on the raging dandruff issues aboard the ISS, and I promised that we'll get to it eventually, okay? So you can calm down. But there was something much more important going on, and I'm sure that you are a little bummed right now at the moment because we're not covering dandruff tonight as promised. But there has been one major focus over the last 5 years on this program. And that is to not only research the consciousness side of the UFO question, but the science side as well. And I spoke about this on Coast to Coast over the weekend. And of course, I discuss it weekly on this show. And I really am fascinated with both sides, and I try to present both sides. And it's even more exciting when I'm able to do both at the same time. And I know that from my own experiences, some with many of you listening right now, that if you go out and focus, right? If you go out and focus and you have fun at night, maybe during the day, and you want to see something, well, you usually do. There's a connection there. It doesn't seem to be specific to one location, although that seems to be the case with a few hot spots around the country and around the world. But they can happen anywhere at any time. You just have to want it, man. You have to be in the right mindset, right? This is the consciousness side of it. And I've proven it to myself countless times. We know that there is something going on. And it's the science side that has my attention. And I have been trying to bring you all of the research that I've done over the last 30 to 40 years on the subject. And for me, it's when you get someone involved in the physics and science that has had their own experiences and are willing to come forward and discuss what may be happening. We did that Saturday with Dee Prasad. It's tough. The hardcore all-star physics people out there will not cross the line. You see, well, at least most of them. And whatever the reasons are, it doesn't matter. I think that their fan base, those that are buying the books and watching the TV and attending the lectures and the conferences and all of that, it's the fan base that is so stuck in a belief system that there is no life after death. There's nothing out there to ponder. Everything is chemicals and particles and math. Anything beyond that means nothing to them. And that's the truth. And it's because this has been the dogma of the hardcore science crowd for such a long time. To suggest anything else, well, they would lose the fame that they've gained over the years. You don't want to do that when you're a rock star, right? They don't want to do that. They've gained all of this fame, rock star status through huge lectures and books and television. To suggest anything else, well, they would lose that fame. Consciousness, the what and why of its existence is something that just cannot be discussed. They won't do it. It's always brushed off when it comes up in a discussion or an interview or a presentation, and they just can't go there. Those rock star physicists will talk all day long about multiple dimensions. They'll talk about time travel, parallel worlds, the multiverse, entanglement, quantum measurements. They'll do all of that. But just try and talk about consciousness. Seriously. I would have loved to have had Brian Greene or Sean Carroll or Neil deGrasse Tyson out there with us in 29 Palms 7 years ago, when it happened, right? It just happened. Wow, it'd be cool if we saw a UFO. Pff, right there, boom, launches. Right there, out of the blackness of the desert up into the sky. And to have Brian Greene or any one of those rock star guys witness that and then explain it, right? Because that was the consciousness side of things firing it up. Oh, it must have been entanglement. The chemicals and particles all gathered together in time and space out there in the desert and just launched into the sky. It was a probability that was the possibility of something happening at that moment. I don't think it was consciousness. I don't think it was us. I think it was entanglement. I think it was chemicals. It was particles that were reacting with the. It's that. That is the view. They won't go to consciousness. The change that happens between the particles that make up this pen and the particles that make up my brain are the same. So, why doesn't this laugh and think and build cell phones? Why? What's the difference? They don't want to talk about it. It's just chemicals. It's chemicals and the way that they react inside of their brain, and it creates electricity. As a matter of fact, the particles here, there's probably a little bit of consciousness in this pen. It's the accumulated particles that, when they mass together inside of your brain, create enough of the little subatomic consciousness to create a consciousness inside of your brain. This pen has consciousness. Now, stop with that, man. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and that's why tonight Adam Apollo is here. We are going to discuss physics, science, and extraterrestrial consciousness with all of you. So stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow me at JChurchRadio on Twitter. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. We have chat rooms open over on Spreaker, over at KGRA The Planet. Everybody's going crazy over on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Hello to everybody. KGRA The Planet, Talk Stream Live, iHeartRadio. I'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When
you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black. You create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Adam Apollo is here. We're going to discuss ET, contact, education, physics, science, consciousness, extraterrestrial intelligence. We're going to do all of that. Tomorrow night, right here on this program, Uri Geller is here from Israel. Wednesday night, the Beard of Knowledge, Randall Carlson, is back. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. Tonight it's Adam Apollo. And as a child, Adam had several encounters with extraterrestrial starships. And since awakening at 15 years of age, Adam dedicated himself to the extensive studies in theoretical physics, symbolic geometry, past life recall, sanskaric healing, Taoist alchemy, martial arts, energy therapies, occult magic, and many diverse ancient and modern spiritual traditions and practices. He is a founder of the UNIFY movement and is a faculty member and the lead systems architect for several international online academies. These include the Resonance Academy for Unified Physics, the Guardian Alliance Academy for Self-Mastery, and the Visionary Arts Academy. He has also provided development, consultation, and white paper editing for multiple organizations focusing on sovereignty, decentralization, and cryptocurrencies, including Swarm.Fund, the Economic Space Agency, Trust Graph, the Decentralized Identity Reputation Kernel, Eve's Share, Terra MX, and others. He's got lots of websites. They are all linked over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'd like to welcome back to the program Adam Apollo. Adam, good evening, my man. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. Glad to be with you tonight.
You know, I don't know if you heard my little opening rant / monologue discussing rock star physicists. And this... This is the deal.
Tell me the deal.
Well, we'll get to them in a second. But as I was doing all of this, I was thinking to myself, we have on Adam Apollo tonight, one of the rock staringest dressed side of guys that we have out there in our community, and you are our rock star. But the other rock star physicist guys out there, what really gets to me is that whatever their imagination is, where they may ponder in certain subjects like consciousness and what that may be in the pursuit of it, ghost and the paranormal and life after death and religion and gods and all of that, they will not discuss it publicly because their fan base is so indoctrinated, right?
Yeah.
And they just can't go there because they don't want to lose their rock star status. And I complain about that. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely not wrong. I mean, the general consensus of the academic world is that if you say things, write things, or do things that would threaten your tenure, you're crazy. So don't do it. And it's part of the reason why I stepped out of that path a long time ago and, left my college at UNCA and was like, okay, I see where that path leads. And that doesn't lead to the comprehensive, holistic truth that I'm interested in.
And why is it that, and I know that their audiences, their lectures, and I'm talking about, the Brian Greens and the Sean Carrolls of the world and Neil deGrasse Tyson, when you see them,
love those guys.
Yeah, they're rock stars. They truly are. And they walk out on stage with these ginormous crowds and the accolades, and much of it is deserved, there's no doubt. But they don't want to lose that because the amount of booze that would hit the stage if they even dip their toes into a consciousness conversation or spirituality, they no matter what they may want to investigate or research, they can't do it.
Yeah, it's very true and unfortunate, really, because I think that with the appropriate sort of philosophical framework and approach to questioning things, establishing proof through logic, through experimentation, through acknowledging and recognizing experimentation that's kind of maybe a little bit further out of the box than most, there are plenty of grounds to enter into those conversations and explore from that realm. A lot of those guys, tended to make it big after putting out a book and getting a TV deal or a movie deal in one way or another. And by doing that, you get a gargantuan audience. And part of the avatar, so to speak, that they've had to play is playing that hard-edged, I'm the academic guy, but I'm going to speak in an interesting way and get you kind of poetically inspired about the mysteries of the universe. But you may not actually get a lot of their personal work, maybe even, because if we look at someone like Isaac Newton, most people don't know this, but Newton was a deep-level alchemist. He studied consciousness probably vastly more than he studied gravity and things like that.
And the Bible.
And most of us have lost that archive of his knowledge, but only recently has some of that started really coming to light.
That's right. I mean, he was a biblical scholar, and even though that is openly discussed today, that the Isaac Newtons of the world, they're out there in physics, but they're not out in front in physics and science, and it's really strange. What do you think? Okay, all right. You're out in the desert. You're out in the desert. Adam Apollo, yeah. You're out in the desert, and you've got Brian Greene with you. And something happens, right? something happens. You pick the subject. Something appears in the sky, maybe an apparition in front of you, somebody something physical goes down, and Brian Greene witnesses it. Does he discuss that in public?
I mean, if it's a Starship, then probably my guess is that he would probably receive it fairly well. Maybe he actually would accept the fact that he just saw something he didn't know how to explain, some kind of aerial craft. He'd go down the logical path of maybe it's, a special secret black ops government vehicle, or I don't know. But is he going to go and talk to his audiences about that? No, probably not. And the reason is because, again, like you said, he doesn't want to debase himself and throw himself off the roof. Where Brian his brilliance is in, exploring sort of leading edge unified physics principles. But I also see, when I read The Elegant Universe when I was 17, that was back in 1998. I saw immediately that there's a lot of dead ends when you go down that road, because string theory becomes over time more and more abstracted and less classical, meaning that it reflects things mathematically very well, but doesn't point to our direct, tangible experience of reality and the experimentation that we witness very well. So, it's been the journey of bridging the work of people like Brian Greene and Lee Smolin, who wrote the first equations in quantum gravity, has a great book called Three Roads to Quantum Gravity. I also read that when I was 16 or 17. And bringing their work in these sort of leading edge theoretical approaches together into a more deep and comprehensive understanding of our direct relationship to space-time. And when we do that, it opens up all kinds of doors and insights. Colleagues of mine like Nassim Haramein has furthered that work immensely by actually developing a lot of the critical equations needed to understand quantum gravity. And it's fascinating because a lot of the really key insights that we're getting in physics now, and I'm working on a weak force paper, just released a quantum gravity course and quantum geometry study. And a lot of the insights that we're getting, it's so fascinating, but they point right back to all of these different metaphysical traditions, spiritual traditions, religious traditions throughout history, that in fact the symbols that they hold sacred and dear across all of these different groups around the world, those symbols, those geometries and structures are actually embedded in the fractal, holographic, geometric tensegrity of space-time itself.
Well, and when you take these concepts, and I fully understand that you have a physicist that is verbalizing and painting a picture of the equations. You may, but I don't look at the math and understand it. I don't look at the symbols and understand it. We are depending on them to verbalize what is actually going on. And right. And so, and you're not going to, I've read The Elegant Universe. I'm reading Brian Greene's a new book right now. And I don't learn physics from that. There's no equations or math in these books. It's their prose that I'm depending on to explain what is theoretically happening with these equations, right? But they are saying that the math says and suggests multiple dimensions, of course, going back to string theory, which you just brought up. It suggests time travel. It suggests parallel worlds. It suggests the multiverse, entanglement and spooky action at a distance and gravitational waves and all of these things are there. That is the most fantastical science fiction subjects that I can imagine. And that's what attracts me to that, because I think that they are open-minded. To suggest parallel worlds to the Earth is pretty dramatic. But they won't cross the line into consciousness. that the math doesn't support that, and they can't push it in that direction. And that to me is you can't have it both ways, and I don't understand why. Maybe you can help me.
Well, it's not that the math doesn't support it. It's just that they haven't recognized the patterns in the math that point to it. So I've been working with a gentleman named Robert Edward Grant for the past year and a half or so. Beautiful man. He's a faculty in my Unified Physics Academy. You can take a couple of his courses there at the Resonance Academy. But he's a polymath, and a brilliant one at that. And if there's one thing I've learned from Robert, it's that if you're willing to actually unpack the root of numbers and look at the symbols in numbers and the way that numbers interact, the way that numbers engage with each other, it reveals to us that there's a deeper architecture to mathematics itself that I would say points to the underlying field of intelligence that is part of the universe itself, that is inherent in space-time, and that, emerges in through the field of each of us coming into exploration of it, so to speak. One of those examples, that he loves to use is between the numbers 2 and 5. Sometimes kids notice immediately, why is the 2 the upside down 5 and the 5 is the upside down 2? Well, isn't it interesting that 1/2, so 1 divided by 2, gives you 0.5, and when you take 1/5, you get 0.2. So they're inversions and mirrors of each other. There's also lots of magic that happens with 3, 6, and 9 and their relationships to each other, with 1 and 8. And there's a dynamic to mathematics at a deeper level. And one of the things that Robert's been exceedingly good at is showing how each one of the major mathematical constants that we know of, so like phi and pi and alpha and Euler-Mascheroni, all of these different constants actually have direct relationships to each other, and most of them have never been known. And I love to describe the constants as kind of the verbs of math. So you can think of like a pi is the making of a circle. In other words, it's literally the energy of what creates rotation. Phi is the energy of a spiral, so it's expansion or compression. Euler, which for those of you that are into the finance world, you've probably heard of this constant. It has to do with the limit of doubling interest, and it's used by banks every day, all the time. Your money is always involving the Euler constant, but most people don't know that it actually also is used in regulating growth in nature. And so it's been very fascinating seeing how each of these verbs interact together in the language of the universe. And my other colleague, Alan Green, who I work with quite intensively on stuff and was with me in Egypt recently, he's shown that the Great Pyramid of Giza actually encodes in its structure and its geometry all of these relationships between these different fundamental constants, and has fundamentally proved that the cover of Shakespeare's sonnets also includes these exact same mathematical relationships and geometries. And all of these things just point to a deeper, more ancient level of knowledge that's been here on the planet for a long time, but perhaps we lost after the time of the floods at the end of the last ice age.
Yeah, Alan Green's work is absolutely mind-blowing. And especially when you go through it step by step, he explains it so well. He's been on the show a couple of times, yeah. And
oh, great, good. Yeah, he's such a blast.
Yeah, he's
going to say you should have him.
And you go through that and you look, and that's when you start to really, you need proof. Everybody wants evidence, right? Well, you go and you look at the way he has laid that out, and I don't know how he thinks in 3D. Because you have to, right? You have to think in 3D to pull that stuff together. But anyway, Alan Green's work is amazing, and how do I explain this? The knowledge of numbers that has snowballed over the years, where we got up to the point where we are today, and then it seems that today we know nothing. That's the interesting part for me, where we've got all of this knowledge. If you go back to Newton and basic physics, the very foundation of Newtonian physics, and where we are today, and the last 100 years since Einstein, 1905 and 1917, and we're in 2020, and we're still waiting for the next big thing. And if you really, Einstein is one thing, but the basics of the basics stopped and started with Newton. We haven't progressed a whole lot. His figures on gravity are what we use today for GPS, right?
Yeah, I often laugh about the fact, like when I do my future tech presentations. I just did one called Galactic Tech. It's up on portal2ascension.org if anybody wants to check it out. But I talk about basically, the fact that we're still using the exact same propulsion systems, developed in China in the 1200s. Like, we're literally exploding gas behind us to propel us through space. And it's like we still are not trying something different to move through space in a way that doesn't warp space-time in this same fashion, that doesn't allow us to actually jump to a new location. And I think that these breakthroughs are getting closer, both because of the mainstream physics and scientific work that you were speaking of with Brian and other guys, and also in particular because of a lot of the work in technology and in physics that most people don't know about. A lot of it is deeply under wraps. It's held in personal labs. People are very, very careful right now because of the sort of way things have unfolded in this country around advancing technology, especially technologies that would majorly disrupt economic interests, oil interests, and things like that. And so I think we're getting very, very close to a point in time, if not this year, where we're going to see a lot of things popping up to the surface that are so powerfully disruptive and game-changing that the world that we're going to be looking at 10 years from now is going to be quite different.
Here we have, Alpha Centauri. If we just take a look at it, 4.5 light years away, with our current technology maxed out, lighting that firecracker, right, that you're talking about, right, to get us there, 75,000 years. 75,000 years.
If you've got the best kind of ion propulsion, which I've done those calculations, you could get it down to 19,000 years.
Right.
But it's still pretty long.
Right. And it's 4.5 light years away. It's a hop, skip, and a jump, with the size of the universe.
Here's the issue. I mean, the issue has been that I like to call it pushing pencils through the fabric. So it's like you're pressing against a high tensegrity field of force. The vacuum space, it's not empty. It's full of energy. So when we press against it, that's why we feel G-force right away. I mean, all you got to do is just barely hit the gas in the car, or at least in my Subaru WRX, I barely hit the gas, and it's like, and immediately you feel the pressure of your body against the gravitational field, against the field of space-time itself, which is just space-time and curvature. And the more we push against it like that, the more we're actually bending space-time, and that's how we get time dilation. And, we start to distort our experience of time versus those outside of us. So even if you do speed up almost to the speed of light, you happen to get to that star Alpha Centauri in your lifetime, and let's say you get almost all the way to speed of light, you get there and it's, it only takes you 4 light years or whatever. You get back, for everybody else, even though for you a very short amount of time has passed, 10 years have passed on Earth if you just go straight there and back, and this is just not reasonable for space travel. But what people haven't really realized, and this is missing from a lot of the mainstream thinking and studies, I mean, warp drive is close. Guys like Harold White at NASA, they've thought about, okay, is it possible to contract space in front of a craft and expand it behind the craft? It's not a bad idea, although it's also not super practical from an engineering standpoint. Whereas the approach that I've suggested for years, and this has come from my personal experiences, is that you could create an envelope that separates the internal space-time of a craft from the external space-time. And by creating this envelope, like a bubble around the craft, you're literally separating it from that tension or the knotting of the fabric around that craft. So then that craft has the ability to move through space-time without creating pressure or creating G-force. In other words, without accelerating. And once a craft can do that, there's no speed limit. And there's also no time dilation because you're not warping space-time.
And nothing
so you can literally leave one location and instantly arrive somewhere else.
That's right. Distance is not a consideration. And this is the thing. I wrote about this last week. It must be, for an advanced civilization, this type of travel and navigation, simple. It's simple. Yeah. It's got to be easy. It's got to be easy. Just like if we went back to 1900, 1890, the first gas engines and steam engines and things and cars, all of that was magic. And it was difficult, it was complex, and it needed to be fine-tuned. Today, automobiles, motorcycles, bicycles, electric skateboards, whatever, transportation today is easy. It's an afterthought. Right. And it's got to be the same way. When we get to that point, right, where ET is, we will find out that it's actually easy for us. We just have to figure out how to get it done, don't we?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think we're closer than ever. And a lot of my other work has been about understanding how to tell the craft, in other words, also tell space-time where that craft is located. And so I've developed some methodologies of gathering, so to speak, the library of different spectral frequency harmonics of different stars throughout the galaxy. A simple way to understand it is like when we identify a star looking up at the sky, this giant, massive, gargantuan ball of gas, each star has a very, very specific fingerprint. And the fingerprint is actually what the star is made of and what it's burning. So each star has a certain amount of hydrogen burning and oxygen burning, all the different elements. And all of those elements form a little rainbow. And that rainbow is a very specific print to that specific star. No other star has it.
Interesting.
And so this actually lets us develop this sort of spectral library of the relative light information that's traveling through space from each point in space.
I like where you're going.
Of course, and now, of course, there's a couple challenges with this. For short-term jumps, so if I was going to Alpha Centauri, for example, it's only 4 years away. The amount of light frequency changes over those 4 years is not very drastic. Same if I'm going to, say, visit the Sirian twins, the two stars in the Sirian system, and Canis Major. But if I'm trying to go to the Pleiades, it's 400 light years away. Or if I'm trying to get across half the galaxy, I'm talking about much, much further. And so the library of information I may have locally may not be correct because 10,000 years may have passed in the 10,000 light years, so to speak, that it takes from the light from that star to get here.
It's that simple. Well, I need to take a break right here.
Let's take the break.
You're absolutely right. What everybody needs to understand, telescope be damned. Whatever we see here, we're seeing the old version of it, right? However far away it is, that's the age of it. Somebody looking at Earth from 10,000 light years away is looking at Earth from 10,000 years ago, not from the now. And it's easy to get your mind around. It's shocking, I think, for most to hear it that way at first, because we just think they're seeing you and I talking on the radio, and that's not exactly what. No, that's not.
If all you're doing is picking up radio waves, you're getting the prehistoric era. You're probably going to pick up like when they were building the pyramids.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
12,000 light years away.
Our guest tonight, Adam Apollo. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to pick up where we're leaving off right now. We're talking about locations in space and how to get there right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, Fade or not, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
everybody. Yes. We are Alpha Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great week we've got here on Fade to Black. Tonight, Adam Apollo joins us. Tomorrow night, Uri Geller from Israel. And Wednesday night, the Beard of Knowledge, Randall Carlson is here. All right, tonight, it's Adam Apollo. And Adam, okay, this is... I want to stay on this location in space question because it boggles the mind when you start to get into this. And I want to stay right there. But we need to go back and visit warp drives after this because the two definitely have to go together. But location in space, especially when you're dealing with space-time, and we understand 3 dimensions, and then you have the fourth, which is time and space, but that is infinite, and the starting point for all of this is where you are at that moment. And it's very confusing because space-time goes in any direction. And so your location in space isn't like finding a location with GPS coordinates, here on planet Earth, because it's physical and we know our starting point and where we want to go to. In space, it's a whole nother situation. Kind of like in Star Trek when, they always have the star date. A date in space means nothing. Right?
Exactly.
A calendar in space is worthless. So
yeah, we could simplify those ideas a bit for people too.
Yeah. So how would you specifically dial in with your interstellar GPS? I like the frequency of stars. That's pretty interesting, but you would have to know the endpoint. Right? Because as you're traveling through space, wouldn't that frequency change? It would have to change over time.
Yeah, it's all about triangulation. So let's wind back just a little bit, and then we'll ramp up to there. So
okay.
First, everybody can understand the nature of space and time being the same thing, because anybody who's ever moved through space knew it took time to do it. So if you walk across the room, it takes time. And the faster you go, there's a different experience of getting across the room. But there happens to be, this sort of theoretical limit, which is that when you speed up to travel across the room, you're pressing through the fabric, which is warping space-time. You're creating gravity by doing it. And when you do that, it takes more and more and more energy to go faster and faster until it takes infinite energy to reach the speed of light if you are accelerating. Now, what's interesting about things that are already going the speed of light is that anything that's already going the speed of light acts as if it has zero mass. And what we know is that if we continue following the curve, so to speak, of how time dilates, in other words, how time kind of stretches out and gets, longer and longer. If you saw Interstellar, they did a great job with this. They hung out for a few minutes on a planet with a big gravitational field. In other words, there was a lot of accelerating force moving into that planet. And when they get off, way more time has passed for everybody else, even though for them a very short amount of time has passed. But when you're going the speed of light, zero time passes. And this is very, very important to recognize, because that means if you have a way to move without pressing through space, without accelerating, then you can literally move as if you're in a space of zero time passing. Now, some people have gone down the road of like, oh my God, does this make time travel possible? And, I talk about this circulating light beams approach in one of my presentations, where we've literally spun light inside of a photonic crystal, and we've noticed that space-time starts to rotate inside of that rotating light. And this is connected to the engineering model that I've proposed around creating ring systems around a craft that's literally spinning light, and through the rotation of these counter-rotating light fields, you're actually touching into the structure of space-time itself and negating gravity at one layer, and at another layer telling space-time where you want to go. So how do we tell space-time where we want to go? Like, so how would you jump halfway across the galaxy? Well, if you're doing very short jumps, like I was saying, you could bounce close to stars that you already know the frequency of, because the distance away is not so great that you can't actually see what the frequencies of that star are like, and interpret those frequencies and tell the drive, all right, we're going this close proximity-wise triangulated between these three stars. But when you're trying to jump 10,000 light years, you're trying to jump all the way across the galaxy or great distances, it doesn't work to do that anymore, because over 10,000 years or up to 100,000 years, if you're all the way across the galactic disk, then during that time, that star may have even exploded. I mean, some stars that we see in the sky literally aren't there anymore.
They're no
because
longer
they already
there.
have gone supernova.
Right.
And there's major changes in the way that the gases burn in stars over very, very long periods of time, and we're talking millions of years. But it's still not super reliable, because over even 10,000 years that might change. So there is an approach to this, and the approach to this is actually by recognizing that there are certain stars that have a very, very stable and measurable frequency change over extremely long periods of time. Like, we're talking tens to hundreds of thousands to even millions of years. And those stars are called pulsars. And pulsars are a star that is basically spinning extremely fast, is in extremely high energy stable state. And we call them pulsars because they literally blast X-rays and gamma rays to us in a periodic tick, like a do. And that speed, the speed of that frequency pulse, has an extremely precise, measurable change over very, very long periods of time. And so I think that pulsars are actually this ancient navigation system that somehow has been set up across the galaxy. I mean, they literally act like beacons. And I'm not the first person that came up with that idea. I saw a presentation by a man many, many years ago. Was it Stephen Bassett, or I don't think? Yeah, I think it might have been Stephen Bassett. And he mentioned this guy who wrote a book on how this guy believed that pulsars are actually this ancient galactic navigation system. And I'll have to look it up on Google and see if I can find his name at some point. But I came across this on my own, and then realized, oh my God, other people have had this thought too, because it just makes sense. They're well spaced around the galaxy. They all have these very super measurable rates and frequencies. If you wanted to build a navigation system to jump faster than light to different points around the galaxy, it's exactly how you would do it.
So that would put you in the galactic neighborhood, right? It would put you in the general vicinity of where you wanted to go. But there's another. Okay, so with a warp drive, and I want to discuss warp drives right now and the ideas and the theories behind them. But a warp drive would remove the obstacles in between point A and point B, Right? Because if you're traveling at the speed of light, you're doing a Newtonian or an Einstein rate of travel. You're doing a physical thing in a ship and moving forward. You have the possibility of impacting something or something impacting you.
That's a problem.
Right. And with a warp drive, you are removing the space in front of you and placing it in back of you. Right not actually moving, right? So you wouldn't impact anything. Am I using my imagination in the right sense?
You're really close, except that the standard, like literally the physics concept of warp drive and the way that it's worked with in NASA by Harold White and others, you are contracting space in front of the craft and you're expanding space behind the craft. And so you're moving space more than you're moving the craft, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But there is still motion. You're just removing the you're removing that the craft is pushing its way through the fabric as much, and it's more like you're kind of pulling your way through the fabric of space-time. And so it still would be possible to impact things using a warp drive in the way that it's kind of traditionally represented even in Star Trek. In fact, it's the shields around the ship that protect the ship when the ship is at warp speeds. So that problem isn't really solved by warp drive. However, that problem is solved by a circulating light beam ring system in which you're establishing a boundary around the craft. Now let me just explain that for just a second, because when you create an envelope around a craft that separates the internal space-time from the external space-time, you're literally talking about like as if that ship or that object is in another dimension. Like for any other purposes, anybody witnessing that craft that has this kind of boundary condition would be able to see it fly through a mountain or into the sun or anything else just as easily as anything else, because it's literally not connected to the rest of the space-time fabric. It's operating as if it's in another dimension, even though it may still be physical and it's just in its own contained field. And what's fascinating about that, when you really look at that theoretically and logically, is that matches up exactly with lots of people's experiences of, UAVs and UFOs and things like that, where they've seen these objects fly in and out of the sun or fly into the side of a mountain and go into some, secret base around Mount Adams. I've been to, James Gilliland's ranch up there at Mount Adams, and it's pretty awesome. I watched this brilliant light gate open up in the mountain, and I saw ships fly in and out of it. And I saw it every night. I mean, they're literally that active that every single night you can see these things. And so it's important for us to grasp that it may not be that some of these things are just, as some people translate it, like higher dimensional. In other words, that they're somehow 5D but not 3D. Right. There's a fallacy with that too, because as you go up in dimensions, you're just including more. You're not losing lower dimensions. Okay, so that's an important piece. If you want to leave the 3D, then you just die. Like you just go into the spirit world. That's the quickest way to ascend out of the 3D. But if you want to go and develop 5D, 6D, 7D consciousness and capabilities, you're actually becoming more integrative in the way that you understand patterns in time, patterns in space, and etc. And a lot of these technologies by these higher civilizations highly leverage the capacity of understanding patterns in time, patterns in space, and ways to leverage that for transportation, for telepathic communications between star systems, because of course you can't use radio waves and beam it. And sorry, Jimmy, but the Fade to Black radio show is going to have to go telepathic at some point. Yeah,
it is. We've got to entangle. We've got to entangle our next syndicator.
That's right.
So with a warp drive or your suggestion using light waves enveloping a craft, would this answer those physicists out there and astrophysicists that suggest that we aren't seeing the volume of interstellar space travel amongst the stars with ET that we should be? You know, going back to the Fermi paradox, and we will go back to this in a second. Is it because they're not actually traveling? We're not seeing things, you know, with candles lit up behind them. We're not seeing that type of traditional space travel. That the way it's being done is these straight lines aren't happening. You know, the trade routes between the stars. Would that be a correct way to put it?
Yeah, well, there's a few layers to that one. And one is that, you know, we're just now realizing that, you know, how many planets are out there around stars. And the reason it's taken us this long to realize that, you know, 99% of stars have planets, and possibly as many as 50% of those have planets that could potentially be in the Goldilocks zone. We've only just realized that because we've actually learned how to measure the light distortion in the gigantic star that's at the center of those solar systems, right? Mm-hmm. And so we can calculate the distortion in the light based on, you know, all these planets moving around it. But remember that planets, they're not gigantic beacons of light like stars. So they're very, very hard to see. And now imagine not a planet like Earth, right? But now imagine a starship that maybe, you know, at the bigger end, some of them might be a city size or a state size. I mean, even some of the biggest motherships could be as large as a continent, right? Or a small moon, right? But that is still unbelievably small and compared to the stars,
and dim, right? And dim. It's not reflecting light, especially if it's far away or in between stars. We have planets out there right now outside of our solar system that we don't know about. We barely found Uranus because it's not reflecting light, right? It's out there too far. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, Uranus, indeed. Exactly. And so, you know, when we see stars so easily because they're gargantuan explosions. So, of course, we don't see ships, you know, just cruising around because they're just so small in our view. And the other thing is that most ships are going to mostly locally travel within a solar system to different planets in that system. We're not going to see those blips, you know, overtaking stars or overtaking planets. And if we do, we're probably going to think that the distortion caused by the ship gravitationally is a planet. And then when they travel, they're going to jump to the other solar system. They're not going to travel through all that space in between. If they did, it'd be a huge waste of time. There's nothing out there, you know, it's empty, or just meteors and stuff, you know. So they're going directly, you know, close by a star to close by a star to close by a star, and jumping to these different systems. And now I just want to also correct one other thing, which is you said that the pulsar system could get you kind of in a region of the galaxy. That's not exactly true, because when you have 3 of them, you can actually calculate the exact position of anything inside of the galaxy.
Right.
There's actually a great MIT article about this, which says that the signals from pulsars, and I'm quoting this because I'm looking at it on Google right now, says the signals from pulsars form a natural GPS system that could locate any object in the galaxy to within a meter.
Now, and I thought about this a lot. Okay, so from here, okay, we're looking at 3 or 4 pulsars, right? Okay, you need 3 minimum, right?
Yep.
Okay,
3.
So
3's the key.
3's the key. And from here, but what about the depth? You know, it's one thing to get to the center of the pulse or somewhere within the region there, but what about the depth? I understand the 2D plane, but what about the 3D plane?
Well, don't think of it as jumping to a pulsar. Think of it as each of the pulsars acts as like a beacon, just like we have GPS satellites on Earth.
Sure.
You don't have to be anywhere near the satellite. So all you need is the 3 beacons to triangulate a spot here on Earth. And so that's what you're doing, is you're using the 3 pulsars in a certain region of the galaxy, and you're triangulating those to a position that's very close to a star and a planets and a series of planets around it. Now, of course, there's still one thing missing here, which is that you have to have some way to detect that you're not going to just jump into a planet or into a star or into another ship. And this is where the other layer of extraterrestrial technology comes in that's really important to recognize, that we require an ability to either do what we call in more occult circles here on Earth astral travel or remote viewing, in order to project consciousness to the location that the ship wants to travel to, detect if there's any anomalies or issues within that region that would cause problems. So make sure the space is empty and you're good. And then that the interface between the pilot who's capable of this technique and the ship is such that then the ship can pick up the information that the pilot has gathered through this projection mechanism. And this is exactly how they do it, because they've had to learn not only how to more universally translate with other beings across many different cultures and languages and planets, which requires a level of telepathic communication ability and a sort of universal light language translation layer, but also that same layer of communicating with your mind also connects, which is entanglement, as you like to say, is also connected to the entanglement of consciousness non-locally with information in another position in the universe. And we already have all the physics to prove that exists, between just basic entanglement studies all the way through to like the work of William Brown and Nassim on, the universe as an integrated information network, to my work in resonance that shows that vibrational resonances are equal to entanglements in different locations. So, these are some of the big leaps forward that need to be made to get there. And I think that what's really fascinating about that is that all those things require, to some extent, some spiritual development here on Earth if we're going to start doing that, right?
Yes.
We have to actually start developing our spirituality and sense of connection and relationship to the rest of the universe.
It has to be simple, right? I keep going back to that. For us now, we've only had 300 years of hardcore science, right? 300, maybe 400. We've had about 50 years of rapid development, and we don't have a clue. We have to take things to the next step, and going to these types of thoughts, not only with warp drives and bending and folding space and not faster than light travel. Zero is the answer there. There isn't a speed of light or faster than light question. It's an instantaneous thing. It has to be the same way with communication. The two go together. And I think once you conquer one, the other part of it is going to be right in front of us, and it's not going to be magic, is it?
No, it's not. Of course, any advanced science is indistinguishable from magic, as Arthur Clarke says, and he's right on. And it's true. Every technology that we have today, from your phone to the lighter to the tea maker you have to the toaster oven to whatever, all of those things, even just a few hundred years ago, would have seemed like unbelievable magic, like that you must be some crazy advanced being from some other dimension or whatever, right? And so this is how people have been looking at galactic species. I mean, even from our standpoint now, it seems like, wow, if there are extraterrestrials and they're traveling between worlds, they must be so advanced that like we don't even have a concept of understanding half the stuff that they're doing. But the beauty is that we can. It's just interesting that the secrets of understanding those require that we make consciousness one of the forefront fields of our study. And I'm not talking about psychology. I'm talking about the study of actually how consciousness operates and responds to the fabric of space-time itself.
Yeah, and we'll do that when we come back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Adam Apollo. Getting our edumacation on here on Fade to Black. Thank you, Adam. Stay right there. We'll be right back on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, Fadernauts, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the paranormal radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Adam Apollo. And if you ever miss the live show, this is a live show in the now, and space-time. But if you miss a live show, just get our podcast. Go over to jimmychurchradio.com, click on that podcast banner. It's just $2 per month. You help support the show, and you also get over 1,200 shows in the archive, including past shows with Adam Apollo. Now, Adam, okay. Before we jump into consciousness, I posted yesterday, I mentioned it last week on the show. I listed my top 30 bands that popped into my mind first, right? 1 through 30. Okay. I just typed, it took 3 minutes, and every band that just popped in my head, I put it in the list, right? Okay. Not in any particular order. My last band was the Rolling Stones, right? So it's not in any order. But the band that popped into my mind first was posted there. And when I ask you that question, when you think of a band, the first band that pops into your consciousness, who is it? The first one. The first one.
That's funny because when you were saying it, it actually popped into my head. And the band is Metallica.
There you go.
And it's funny because I had several Metallica songs like just show up in my head today out of the blue. And I used to I still love Metallica. I mean, seriously.
Right.
And I just love being on your show too, because, you've always got some really rockin' heavy metal here and there. And I can really get down with that and enjoy that. It's not my general listening preference, but thank you very much.
You know what's funny? I'm glad you said Metallica. Metallica didn't make my list. They didn't pop into my head. I just did the bands that popped into my head, right? And
sure.
And I get to the end, so I post the list and the feedback from everybody. How could you forget about? How could you? Right? Metallica's not there. Aerosmith didn't make the list. And
really? Wow. Okay.
They didn't pop into my head. I didn't do my top 30, right? Number 1 through 30 ranking. I just posted a list of the bands that popped into my head in 3 minutes. As fast as I could type. Yeah. And Metallica didn't make the list. Can you believe that? Metallica did not make the list. Dokken did.
That's shocking.
Dokken made the list. Oh, man. It's so funny. Hey, the Black Album, when Bob Rock came in and whipped that band into shape, it was commercialized and they had their hit songs for the first time and all of that. But that album is so bleeping great. The Black Album, I mean, it is unbelievable, and made me have strange dreams for a long time too as well. There's some songs in there that were very, very heavy. Okay, moving now. Okay, now see, that's what consciousness is. You and I can have a conversation about music, right? And we can laugh about it. Yeah. It creates emotions. And that part of it, which separates us from a rock, but yet we are made of the same particles. And what is the transition of, I held up a pen earlier in the show talking about consciousness, and there are physicists out there that will say that all particles have a little bit of consciousness there. And then when they all combine together into this mass of our brains or other sentient beings, then the consciousness is collected into a mass, and it's a chemical reaction that happens. But all particles and atoms and protons and photons and quarks and electrons, that they all have a little piece of consciousness attached to them. I don't buy that story, but that's their way of trying to explain what consciousness is. How do we make that transition from, atoms and particles to you and I talking about Metallica? How does that happen?
I have a lot of respect for the philosopher and now called physicist René Descartes. He was probably one of the first people actually called a physicist to some extent, but more a philosopher. And I have a lot of respect for the work that he did and his approach to many things, including the idea that individuals are the ultimate lens on truth. So this was a huge step because it started the Enlightenment period. It broke people away from just trusting that the church is supposed to tell them everything that's true, and that people could actually inquire about the truth for themselves. Wow, what a concept, right? So brilliant. But the other side of his work, I think, actually was detrimental to science for a very long time, and we're still actually caught in some of the throes of that. And that is that he had this theory that things are only a composition of their parts, and that living beings are basically automata. So they're just these automatic assemblages of all the parts that make us up. And then what separates, humans from everything else is that these automatic machines that would otherwise be bodies have souls that come into them. Right. And this creates lots of issues philosophically and everything else. And if you're an animal lover, it's heartbreaking because literally he's saying that animals are machines. And this is the way that we've treated animals for a very, very long time, which is in vast contrast to the way that almost every ancient culture on this planet has treated animals. Because when you are an indigenous culture, and let's say you spend a lot of these nature-based cultures, they spent so much time observing animals. I mean, most people in our day and age, have maybe spent a few hours observing animals in our life, or, watched some stuff on Animal Planet regularly or whatever, right? But we're talking about people whose livelihood and daily life is generally centered around being aware of your surroundings, the animals around you, the biosphere around you, and those interactions. And to those people who spend that much time watching, they recognize that there is a level of intelligence in animals that most people have no idea about. And this was my family member, my grandfather, who actually worked with Flipper way back in the day. And my mom got to swim with Flipper when she was a little girl. You guys remember the Flipper TV show?
Of course.
Of course. So he was studying specifically orcas and dolphins, and bottlenose dolphins in particular. And in this journey that he was on, he realized that some of these animals appeared to have a higher intelligence than the humans studying them. And that they just simply operated in a way that was so different that, in their culture, their way of behaving was so different that, it was as if they were choosing to come play with these human pets and play around with them.
That's right.
See how they'll respond to things. And so he pushed very hard to not keep them in captivity, to let them come and go as they choose. And a gentleman that he worked with very closely, whose name was John Donne, had a different idea. And John Donne said, no, we need to share this with the world. We need people to know and understand how smart these animals are. And my grandfather wouldn't have it. He was like, no, I disagree. I'm not going to be a part of anything that's about keeping these animals in captivity. John Donne went on to found SeaWorld, and my grandfather went on to write lots of books. And so, in my own lens, I've seen in my life and through studying indigenous culture, my own relationship as a half Irish person to my Druidic cultural roots in the Tuatha De Danann and so on, as well as running with indigenous elders across the country and smoking the White Buffalo Peace Pipe with Orville Looking Horse, the chief of the Dakota Nakota Sioux, and doing prayer runs with youth across the country carrying eagle staves. I came to really deeply understand why they see animals the way they do, and witnessed personally the kinds of synchronizations of awareness and consciousness between the animal world and the human world that, for me, drastically redefined the way that I had been taught, to look at animals as these lesser beings, right?
Right.
And started just seeing them as different beings with a different kind of consciousness and a different relationship to each other and to nature. And that was a big breakthrough for me.
I often
really
think,
shifted my life.
Yeah, I often think when I'm on the phone or talking with friends or with you, and we're discussing the complexities of space-time, and my dog is lying at my feet going, space-time, you just don't get it, man.
Exactly. Yeah, like, like, come on, man.
Yeah, man, we went through that a long time ago, bro. You got a ways to go. I'm being serious too. I am not in any way joking about that. And cats are a whole nother discussion, man. They brought us here. They created us to make sure that they have a good existence.
Well, the Egyptians would say that for sure. Yeah.
100%. But how does, and I know you've thought about this a lot, that's one part of physics we discussed earlier, that they recognize consciousness, but they want to take the easy road out by just saying it's a chemical reaction, that they don't want to spend the time on the research of going into that direction. How is consciousness developed? Is it something that exists in balls of energy out in the universe, and it just happens to come and find you and I as meat suits to exist in?
That's a pretty crazy idea. It probably would freak some people out,
right?
To think about. But I would say this: it's not that current scientists haven't spent the time. It's simply that our understanding of physics has not been comprehensive or complete enough to actually get how consciousness can operate. When we start to understand things like holography, entanglement, how the resonance of specific light and electromagnetic frequencies in one area creates quantum coherence with another area in space-time, and so that a change in one area can instantaneously change that in another area. Now we're starting to actually see the dynamics of consciousness. And, in my work, I've extensively described the nature of space-time as this fabric of light in which different, like literally the threads of that fabric, if you actually want to think of it as like a three-dimensional stitching, the threads of the fabric are actually made of wormhole networks. And the entire structure of space-time is entangled with itself. In other words, it's all threads that are interconnected. And when areas of one part of the structure and the threads vibrate in a certain way, and this is where it links to string theory insights, when there's vibration in one area of space-time, and that synchronizes with vibration in another area of space-time, the two operate as if there's no distance between them. And so this is how we can build entangled communications and et cetera. This is actually how we are right now, teleporting particles and doing huge leaps in that. China's made some big leaps in that recently with some of their scientists. However you feel about China, they're pretty freaking smart guys when it comes to science. And the ability to jump these particles through space is actually just about creating a field in one area and in another area that synchronize, that connect. And this is also the kind of key to stargates and to faster than light travel too. Although with a stargate, it's a little bit more like you've got this giant wheel on another planet, big, like straight out of the movie Stargate or SG-1, this big, ring. And that ring is literally creating a vibration sequence that is designed to exactly match the electromagnetic energy vibration sequence of another ring, which forces the space-time between the two rings, like in other words, the plane of the ring over here and the plane of the ring over here, start operating at a quantum scale as if they are the same space. And this is what creates this sort of diaphragm between the two locations, allowing an object to pass through it as if it was literally walking through a doorway and out the other side.
Now, what does this do? Well, let me jump in there. How does that? Well, there's a direct conflict with everything that Einstein says, in that now we are traveling a distance, not at the speed of light, but in the speed of now. Okay, that's a very big difference. When we return, if we've traveled that distance and the miles, however you want to measure it, has been completed, we have now gone past the speed of light to the speed of now. When we return back here, how is that defeats everything that Einstein has told us about the freezing of time and
not exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If for it to work, and we arrive back here, you and I haven't aged, right? And Earth hasn't changed its time reference, its frame rate. We come back to that. Well, then Einstein's numbers are not applied here, and it doesn't make any sense.
The time dilation that Einstein was talking about only occurs through the act of acceleration, which acceleration and gravity are the same thing. Einstein literally says in his thought experiment, if you're going up in something, you're experiencing more G-force or gravitational force. It's literally acceleration and gravity are exactly identical. So anytime you're in a heavy gravitational field, heavy G-force, heavy acceleration, then you're warping space-time. And when you press through space-time like that and you're bending space-time around you, you're distorting time. But if you're not accelerating and you're not creating a gravitational, distortion, then there's no problem. And Einstein actually came to this because he had two papers. One was with Rosen, and Einstein and Rosen came up with this idea that it would be possible under certain conditions to create a bridge between 2 points in space-time where energy could pass from one place to the other, and they called it a wormhole, right? Or it was kind of popularized as wormhole, and the scientific term became Einstein-Rosen bridge. He also did another paper with Podolsky and Rosen in which he was looking at the dynamics of things at small scales in the quantum world, and realized that at the quantum world, in the very, very smallest things that we see, it would be possible for the energy in one location to be entangled with the energy of another location, and for information to instantaneously travel between them. Now, they never really reconciled these two papers, but recently in modern times, a lot of physicists, including John Wheeler, who's the guy who really wrote the book on gravity that is taught at all colleges. It's a gigantic book, by the way. It's very expensive and painful to carry around. This guy, John, he is part of a group of scientists who believe that the Einstein-Rosen bridge, or wormhole, and the EPR theory about quantum entanglement are actually talking about the same thing. That entanglement is based on the fact that space-time might be made of micro wormhole networks. And that very, very well matches up with my physical description of space-time.
Okay, so if you take the time, however short it is, to walk through the door, or a warp drive, whatever it is, where we are now moving around the obstacles of faster than light travel, or up to the speed of light. We're now walking around that. Okay? All right. Yep. So, but there is an element of time that has to happen, as small as it is, to travel in the now, right? To step through the Stargate, or to use a warp drive or whatever. There's still a small amount of time. The smaller that amount of time is, the particles, you and I, still have to move from point A to point B. So that we are not at the speed of light. We are moving so fast that we don't even notice it. It is instantaneous.
Yeah, it's jumping.
So what I am suggesting here is that when you come back to Earth, the equations of traveling at the speed of light and coming back to Earth and time traveling into the future, we would come back to Earth and it would be so much speed and such a short amount of time involved that Earth would be 1 trillion years in the future and not even exist to return to come back to. That's the part that I'm saying, if we stay with Einstein's equations, no matter how short that time is of stepping through the Stargate, you're still transporting. You're not moving at the speed of light or faster than light.
Yeah, that's not exactly correct because you're never accelerating. So because you're not creating acceleration, so you're not pushing your way through the fabric, you're not distorting time. The only area where the equations in general relativity work with time dilation and distortion is between relatively standing still and going the speed of light, and it's about accelerating up to different speeds in that direction.
Understood.
Once you're on the other side of the light barrier, time doesn't pass. And that's also there's no mass. And the positioning of, say, a Stargate on one planet and another planet forming a bridge between those two locations, literally it is as if the space in one of the gates and the other space in the other gate are the same location. It's not, there is no travel, there's no distance between them. So when you step through it, you're just there, like on the other side, as if you're just moved right through this envelope that is like a quantum plenum that allows this leap to happen. And that's functionally how it works from every standpoint, including advanced theoretical physics and everything else. And so it's only Einstein's issues in that paradox only exist in the conditions where you're trying to accelerate. And during the time of Einstein and most of the 20th century and up till now, most space travel has been thought of as only being possible through accelerating. And this is how, certain really well-known scientists have said space travel is impossible and we can't go to other stars. We'll never survive. There must not be extraterrestrials because there's no way they could make it here and back. Why would they do it? It'd be pointless. They must be coming for our resources. But all of these involve very fundamental fallacies because they don't take into account the capacity of information traveling faster than light. And when we say information can travel faster than light, that also means that matter can as well, in certain conditions, in a way when it's not pushing against the surrounding space. Now, we all experience this because we all experience entanglement with each other. If you've ever had a thought about something and then someone across the room suddenly says something about that exact same thought and they just had it at the same time, that's not a coincidence, trust me, because I've experimented with this endlessly. It's that at one level, you both tapped into a space that was the same space of information on a so-called higher plane, you could call it, like the astral plane is one way that certain occult studiers and metaphysicians have called this kind of thing. But from a physics standpoint, we can just say, oh, well, there was a light resonance in the space of that person and in you, and you shared that light resonance, and so you were then literally synchronized in that thought. Now, other times, people have a thought or a vision, and then somebody else close by them or someone even across the country has a dream about that same thought and vision. And lots of people have had the experience of a friend calling them and be like, dude, oh my God, I just had this dream about you last night and this and this and this happened. And the person's like, oh my God, I just those things did just happen or blah, blah, blah. And how did you dream about that? And so time is still occurring for the experience to be passed, right? So each person is still experiencing time. And in fact, one person might have a dream and then another person has a dream the next night, and they might be the same dream and connecting together. So the distance between the times of the dreams and things like that don't matter as much as that in the moment of the space within the field of consciousness, or as we could call it, the astral plane or the mental plane,
right,
there is a synchronization of those fields. And so they're entangled. And so two people are experiencing the same information structure at the same time. It's just locally, relatively, they're seemingly in different time frames.
We need to take a break right here, Adam. So just stay right there. Got to pay the bills. Our guest tonight, Adam Apollo. And when we come back, now he just touched upon this. I'm not going to let it go. Information and energy. We're going to stay right there. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Adam Apollo. What a great conversation. And I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to warn Adam now. We've got one segment left, but I got the feeling we're going to head into overtime. So, Adam, I hope you have some extra coffee, because in about 20 minutes I'm going to say, dude, we can't stop this conversation. We're going to have to continue. So, this is the point where I think most of us start to ask a couple of very fundamental, I use the word fundamental, we're talking about physics. I don't believe that traveling through a black hole is a good idea. I don't think it'll work. I think it's possible. You get strung out, and at the other end, even if it was possible to reassemble, I question where all of the energy and information goes. And you assemble back, and what your memories and things are assembled back into the same. It's like erasing a cassette tape with a magnet. You may reassemble, the cassette tape is still there, but the information is missing. But traveling through a Stargate, or a wormhole, an Einstein-Rosen bridge, or with a warp drive, where you are removing the physical elements of traveling in space and the physical limitations of traveling at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. What happens to the information? What happens to your brain? Is that something is this safe? Right? What the physical side of it, do we change?
Yeah, so two things. One is, it's really not a good idea to try to travel through a black hole. A black hole is, literally by definition, maximum space-time curvature to a singularity or infinite curvature. So you're literally talking about a point where the greatest gravitational torsion forces imaginable are going to literally rip everything apart down to its constituent proton structure, and then possibly even in the singularity core dissolve those protons into a collective larger geodesic made of space-time. So anyway, those are a lot of big words, but yeah, don't do it. It's not a good idea. It's not a hole. It's not actually like a gateway into another place. That's not what a black hole is. It's a really bad misconception. But a wormhole, now that's something very different. And like I said, that it requires certain kinds of conditions, but you can think of a wormhole like the kind of classical model of explanation is, you take a piece of paper and you say, okay, I'm over here on the left side of the piece of paper and I'm trying to travel to the right side of the piece of paper. So the two ways for me to get there, one would be to draw a line across the whole paper, where that's traveling and that's pushing through space-time. It requires, in this case, ink, but jet fuel and fire blowing up behind you and all these things to push your way over there. Or what if there was a way to take that location on the other side of the paper and you bend the paper in half and you put the 2 points together and you poke a hole between? Well, that's more like what traveling through a wormhole or a Stargate looks like. It's literally taking the position in space in one area and it's matching it to the position in space in another area. And now if this is done properly and you are literally creating an open window between those two spaces, there isn't really anything that you're passing through. So there's not actually like a wall or something that's dematerializing you and rematerializing you on the other side. Everything about you, your body, your consciousness, your whatever, your vehicle, the little cart that you're bringing with you, your dog, all of these things stay completely consistent. And it's literally you're just literally walking through a window, like you're stepping through that hole that's in one side of the paper to the other side of the paper. And so there's not actually any occurrence that goes on. And this is the same kind of thing in creating an envelope around a spacecraft that's isolating the inside of that craft from the external spacetime, is that, there's nothing is really off inside of that space. I mean, the only thing that's different is you have to create your own artificial gravitational field inside of the craft if you want there to be gravity on the inside of it, because once you isolate it from all external sources of gravity, there's no more planetary gravity, any other gravitational well, solar or otherwise, affecting you. So you're in your own zone. And so you want to make your own gravity, and that little envelope that's separating you from the surrounding space, when you move around, it doesn't have any influence on that surrounding space-time. Which also means that if we look at this realistically, that kind of drive has to be turned off when you come into an atmosphere and you actually want to land or something like that. If you want to land, you're going to have to turn off that drive, because otherwise you just go straight through the Earth. You'd go right through. There's no matter interaction that's going to affect that craft, which is kind of like, think of it as like an invincibility force field. But instead of a force field, think of it literally as if it's a separate space-time. It's literally in its own space-time that's separate from the surrounding space-time. And I don't know how to say it other than that now.
And I know, and I've seen this concept demonstrated by so many different researchers and scientists, where they literally pick up a piece of paper and poke a pen through it, right, and fold it in half. And I get that, but if the space on the piece of paper, and you're going to that point, aren't the planets and the stars that are on that paper, aren't they being folded too? Wouldn't we see them move in space?
Yeah, it's actually why it's really a bad example, because it doesn't actually communicate it, because you're not actually taking that region in space and pulling it all the way over to you. That is the concept of warp drive. So warp drive is literally, how do we contract all the space-time in front of us, which is one of the reasons why, from an engineering standpoint, it's just not very practical. But from the standpoint that we're talking about, it's much more like this. Like, you can imagine someone has a hot tub on the other side of the planet, and you've got a hot tub, where you're at your house or at your spa or whatever, and that hot tub, literally the water in that hot tub starts swirling a certain way, and it's lit up a certain way with some lights, and you play some certain music, and the hot tub that's on the other side of the world, you swirl it a certain way, you put some lights on, you play the exact same music, and you synchronize the hot tub experience between both places. So, like, literally, if you got in the hot tub here, it's almost it literally becomes completely indistinguishable from being in the hot tub in the other place. So you go and you get in the hot tub here, you're experiencing everything the way that you're experiencing it, and it's in a certain room or whatever, right? And the room looks exactly the same. And then you get out of the hot tub and you walk out of the room, but you're not at your location anymore. You're actually on the other side of the planet. So it's like that. It's like two spaces being so similar, so connected, and that's what these like Stargate portals do. So connected and so similar that the space literally becomes the same space. So when you walk through it, you're just on the other side.
Yeah, I saw that movie back in the 70s. It was pretty good. Hey, the answers to this, when I keep going back to it's got to be simple. I wrote last week about this. It's funny that we're talking about it now, because I wrote last week that in 1965, Frank Herbert, in Dune, tackled this very subject, 50 years ago. And he tackled it with something simple as a spice, right? Melange. And it may be complex engineering. It may take a machine. There may be that part of it. But there may be something else that is involved, like consciousness, to make this happen. Frank Herbert did it elegantly and easily with the spice, and maybe it's used as a metaphor. But could it be something that simple?
Well, I think that Frank, personally, I think a lot of these great authors, including Tolkien and Gene Roddenberry and others, and Frank Herbert, I think that they're tapping into information that is existing, like actual civilizations and other cultures. I've seen the worlds where Dune is describing and what it's trying to describe. And, every writer has their own spin on things. So they style things their own way. They go off on their own kind of fictional idea. But what they're pointing to underlying is something that's actually real and very present. And I think that the spice in a very real sense, represents a material, a molecular structure, or whatever, which has the capacity to change a state of consciousness into a state where it's more in touch with and connected to the energetic structure and geometry of space-time itself. And so, these creatures that pilot the ships using the spice, can actually access the location that they're going to jump the ship to with their consciousness. And then literally the whole ship is surrounded with a field, and then the ship jumps to that location. But it's all being pulled by consciousness. And I'm sure that there's those out there who would equate the spice with something like LSD or DMT or, psychedelic mushrooms and things like that, where it's like, for people who have had those kinds of experiences, some of them report the experience as being more deeply in touch with the underlying architecture and nature of reality, through their own, self-study and exploration of that.
Right.
And so yeah, I think he was pointing to something very real, which is that, medicines, or whether it's, meditation being your medicine and eating healthy food being your medicine, or, taking a psychedelic being a medicine, or whatever, there's things that operate within us in a certain way that can affect our perception, and also that can remove the blocks in our perception, and actually clear calcification from our pineal gland and things like that, allowing us to perceive deeper patterns and geometries in space and time. And this points to the foundations of the level of what is consciousness itself also, because it says that as we become more conscious, we become more aware of pattern. We become more aware of how thoughts and things are just geometries. We become more aware that emotions are currents, that they're like energy moving through and passing through us. And then if you allow an emotion to fully enter you, it will come and it will go. You will feel it and it will move and it will change to something else. We become more aware that our physical nature is really a constant alchemy between different elements, the balance of the fire or air, earth, and water, and or spirit inside of us. And if we want to get really scientific about that, we just describe it as thermodynamics and aerodynamics and, the geodynamics, which can also describe the mineral dynamics of our bones and things like that, the pressure systems and hydrodynamics of the water inside of our body. And so it doesn't really matter what terms you use. There's a universal framework to the way that consciousness is and operates, and it doesn't matter what tradition you come from, what language you speak. There's all directions on the wheel point to the same sort of core essence of things. And it's revealed in the fact that we all craft language. We all craft means of communications. We all interact with certain things and certain ideas in certain ways. And so in that way, we're all similar because we all are conscious beings operating and interacting with consciousness itself.
If you and I are traveling, staying on this right here, right? If you and I are traveling to star number 123 ABC, right? Mm-hmm. And we're heading out that way. And we look on our radar, mm-hmm. and we see another ship approaching us. And it's 40 light years away. We're traveling another 1,000 light years. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right. I'm talking in the mechanical sense here. Mm-hmm. And we need to communicate with that ship. And we see that they're coming from ABC 123 or 123 ABC. And we want to know, is ABC 123 worth exploring? Are they out of the stardust that we need to mine? Whatever it is. We need to get some information.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We can't communicate with speed of light radio technology of today. Nope. We can't do that. It would take us 80 light years. And also, we might want to slow down and say hello, too, as well. or we would like to identify. In other words, we need to communicate.
Yeah.
That communication wouldn't happen mechanically. We wouldn't, even if it was telepathic, right, or entangled, we wouldn't lean forward and hit a microphone and speak on our entangled communicator. Or maybe we would. But we would stand there and focus forward and communicate in real time, right? How would that communication happen? We would have to know friend or foe. We would, or maybe information about where they've come from. How would that communication happen?
Yeah, well, there's a few kind of protocols and approaches to things like this. So one is that, the body, a physical body with consciousness in it, in other words, us and the vehicles that we're in, is already an extremely high-tech device. It has the capacity to entangle information between places in space-time. And so as a mechanism, it's fundamentally fully capable of doing the work to move itself and move your consciousness to the location of the other ship and communicate with somebody on that ship if they're capable of communicating at that level. And it's also possible, as we know, because of studies that we've done through Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Group, as well as many, many different augmentation device formulas and practices and things done at Singularity University, where we've found that there are ways to pick up the thought waves that we have inside of our head and have a computer system reflect back to us what it is that we see and experience inside. This has been done as simply as using thought for somebody to draw something on a monitor, all the way to, as my friend Patty Rangel was working on in her work at NASA and Singularity University, they were actually working with piloting and moving things in another location by using thought forms to operate avatars in Second Life. Right. This was back in the days where Second Life was still, a big thing.
Right.
And so we know that external technology can magnify and augment our internal technological capacities. We're just babies at it, basically, at this point. But with some practice and, some work on that, what we'll find is that augmentation not only works with just conscious thoughts of trying to move a line or doing things like that and translating language, but also works to translate information that we may get telepathically or astrally, because it's the same exact mechanism. So in this sort of advanced civilization that's around the galaxy, a lot of the technology is not designed to do fantastic, amazing things, that we can't do. It's designed to augment the abilities that are already inside of us and maximize the ability of consciousness to interact and work with those technologies. So one is that we would probably, to reach out to that other ship, as we're going to jump to that star and we don't want to jump into their ship or whatever. So we're just going to check the region of that star. So we do a projection, and the ship, in feedback to you in the pilot seat, is giving you a holographic heads-up display showing you the region that you're projecting in your mind to look at.
Because space is big. I mean, it's infinite, right?
Yeah.
And so we would be potentially making that entangled contact with an infinite number of beings that had that same capacity.
Not exactly, because there's a key to that. So the same way that we have phone numbers,
I love being corrected by the way you do it so politely.
Oh, thanks, I appreciate it. But you're on the right track. I mean, you're on the right track. And the thing is just like we have phone numbers and we dial a specific phone number, or when we join a Zoom meeting, we join a specific number meeting, or Skype line, we use a specific address to reach somebody. There's a similar kind of addressing system in the galaxy, and it's symbol based. So each ship has a specific sigil, is what I like to call it, because it's the old Nordic word for symbol, and it actually represents a symbol which inherently contains information within it that points to the nature of the object. And so not only does every ship have a symbol, but there's kind of larger categories. So every species has a symbol, every planetary system has a symbol. And when you go down, it's not only the ships, but command units, all the way down to individual people. Every person has their own light language sigil, which represents a way for other people to be in touch with them or connect with them. The best thing that we can use to think of something we have on Earth that's similar is like logos, right? So every company has a logo, different groups and sororities, fraternities, or schools, they all have emblems and insignias. And so these are the things that will eventually be part of these signatures that we use for these contact experiences to be able to do entangled communication, because it's really just the rolling up of that to a higher level. So for me, instead of like knowing the phone number for somebody that's a part of a specific corporation with a specific symbol, I just know that symbol. I think of that symbol, and then that puts me in the kind of region of the subgroups of individuals that I may want to contact. And if I don't know the person, then I focus on the symbol that represents this particular sector of companies within that company. So I want to reach the HR department, for example, or something, right? So it's just establishing a symbol language for sorting and accessing different information bases, which also includes, in this case, craft and pilots and people that are organizing and commanding the travel between star systems.
We're going to be headed towards overtime, so you just relax. You don't have a choice. You're going to stay right there. And as we lead into the break, these conversations that you and I are having, physicists out there, theoretical, quantum, it doesn't matter. They will always bring up the obstacle, which is this type of communication, this type of traveling the stars in an interstellar fashion requires the energy of a universe, right? The energy of a sun, just to do it one time. And I go back to the simplistic side of this. They want to look at it now, right, with our limitations. It can't take up the energy of the known universe to do these things. How is it done without, burning out a star every time you need to do a text message?
You want me to answer that or after the break?
No.
Yeah. So yeah, they're absolutely incorrect. The reason that they say that is because there's a very common understanding that in order to try to bend 2 points in distant space-time to each other, that would require an insanely gargantuan amount of energy. And it would be literally like what you were saying, where you pull the other point in space to you, and somehow you're warping all the space in between, and all the stars are folding, and it's a total mess. That's one of the lenses of that approach. Right. The other is the lens of creating negative mass, and the idea of being able to create negative mass, which could be used to create a closed time-like curve. In other words, frame dragging to the point that you warp space-time at a hugely significant level. Our current understanding of what that would take would be like something like the energy of an entire star exploding, because we just don't see things like negative. It just doesn't occur. So we only have the loosest theoretical understanding of for how that's even possible.
Bingo.
But most of the time they don't have any concept of something like how light itself interacts with space-time, because space-time is made of light. And there is a natural plug-in for how light can actually operate and adjust the structure, geometry of space itself. And there's already been work and experimentation done that proves aspects of this. It's just not very well known. It's very obscure science. Most people have not ever gone there in their thinking, and it hasn't been taken far enough to be applied to looking at how you could use it to create a standing wave gravitational envelope around a craft that would let it jump faster than light or superluminally across the galaxy.
And with quantum computing, we'll take our break here, but with quantum computing, once it is established and we have functional, real quantum computers, all of this math can be figured out. And we may be on the very brink of making these discoveries very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Yeah, let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Adam Apollo. Now, when we come back, I want to talk about the one thing that you want me to discuss. How does communication with entanglement, telepathy, if you want to call it that, how does that actually happen? How is it possible? We will do that right after the short break. This is Fade to Black. We're heading into overtime with Adam Apollo. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Tepe.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Adam Apollo, going into overtime. And I hope you guys really appreciate the way that I just snuck that into Adam. And I made sure that we were in the middle of a conversation and we couldn't stop. See, you were trapped. You were entangled.
It's all good, Jimmy. I love being on here with you. I will have to wrap it up in this segment, though, because
we're done.
Early morning, and I'm doing a big presentation for the live Disclosure Fest online events tomorrow.
Oh, you're doing that? Wait a minute. I'm doing that with you. We're doing that together.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm on it. I'm on the 2 p.m. Pacific time.
I forgot all about
presenting the Unified Harmonic Matrix.
You know what's funny is that's how the universe works. Right there. That's how the universe works. I forgot all about it. You forgot, but tomorrow, and you being on the show has nothing to do with tomorrow. That's bizarre. I forgot all about. I'll see you tomorrow too.
Yeah, well, I have an early morning and some business meetings before that presentation, so I'll have to call it after this round. But go ahead with your question.
No, actually, we're going to go to midnight. We're going to go for 2 more hours.
We did that till 2 a.m. last time.
Yeah, we did.
Or 2?
We did. Yeah. Okay, now. Isaac Arthur, who I respect, I call him a friend because he is, but he's a brilliant mind, and he appreciates all that is going on out there, and his exploring of the Fermi paradox and communications and Dyson spheres and colony starships, all of these concepts, right? Okay, but when I talk to him about real-time communication and entanglement, he shoots me down. And the reason why he does, and I have to listen to him because he's got all the professional accolades that are behind him. I don't have any of those.
He's got a bachelor's in physics.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's a very smart guy, and I love him to death, and he just won a very prestigious award this year. So anyway, he says that the entanglement of a single particle in another location is one thing, and it's proven. Okay, he's okay with that, but that amount of information at the bit level is so intense to send a JPEG. Or, a simple, that it is a complex amount of entanglement that would occur at one particle at a time, and it's just impossible, and the amount of energy that is involved. I look at it, and I just think I can't say that he's wrong because I don't have anything to prove it, but my thought is this, that the entanglement doesn't happen with one particle at a time. It's happening with all of the particles and the neurons that are firing off into another being where all of the particles are entangled at the same time. I don't know how else it could occur. So I need your help on this.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. I mean, he might just not be updated on that front. I mean, there's so much moving so fast right now in science and in physics that there's breakthroughs all the time. And unless you're really tracking things like this, you would just miss it. But recently, they've gone way beyond the entanglement of 2 photons. And they've actually managed to transport information from a macroscopic object, literally an object that's visible to the naked eye, And this was done by basically assembling a series of molecules into a structure that is actually kind of the foundational structure that forms a qubit in a quantum computing chip. And the behavior of a qubit and the way the structure is designed is such that it's able to process, information. It's designed to process quantum information. And so it's not that surprising that they would be able to actually teleport a qubit itself, because that's the nature of literally how quantum computing should work in the future, is being able to quantumly teleport information and entangle information between different computer systems, and that kind of thing. So that's been done. It's there, absolutely. And one thing that we have definitely come to understand in physics is that this scale of a field that can be brought into quantum coherence with another field, there's not a known limit to that. There's only known limits with our experimentation, but there's not a known limit to how large a field area can be quantum entangled to another field area. There's literally never been an established limit or theoretical limit. Nobody's done a math point that says there's a limit to it. So there's nothing saying that you couldn't have an entire, hard drive entangled in multiple places, or that you entangle an entire field of space inside of a Stargate. Nothing is stopping any of these things from being possible.
So going back to my original thought, with my imagination going crazy trying to tackle this, it would be the entire brain that is entangled.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, and looking at things biologically and the way that our DNA works even, it seems that our biological structure is actually highly entangled with itself. In other words, we are a messaging system inside of our own bodies that's quantum teleporting information between one location and another all the time. and there's some data behind this. I would recommend checking out the work of Dr. William Brown, who works with us at the Resonance Science Foundation, because he's done some great work on this and some papers on this. But he's shown that it's possible that DNA inside of each of our cells may have properties that is entangling that DNA to the rest of the DNA in all the other cells, so that if there is a change in the information network of our environment that would affect our genetic structure on some level, probably in the region that most scientists call, or used to at least call, junk DNA, but which has been found to be adaptable DNA that actually changes in response to environment. It's where we think most of the major epigenetic changes happen between generations, as well as whatever evolutions are going to occur from one generation to another are actually encoded from these environmental responses that happen in these areas of our adaptable DNA. And so how is it that all the DNA in the body gets updated properly and stays connected? We don't have a really clear mechanism for this. I mean, unless you're literally having new DNA copy every single cell that makes up your entire body, you're going to have different genetic code in every one of your cells if you can't keep it all in sync, right? So there must be a mechanism that's keeping this adaptable DNA in sync across all the cells in your body. And functionally, DNA appears to be built in such a way that would allow these kinds of quantum charges to be passed through the center of the coil, where the interactions of each of the amino acids actually occur.
Right.
And that in this center coil, it could be as if almost like we have a quantum light array that is establishing a synchronization between all the DNA. And the DNA is literally all the same information structures. So this literally matches exactly what we talk about when we talk about quantum coherence, as exactly the same information, light, frequency, and everything else. And when two spaces in space-time have exactly the same light information and frequencies and energy, then it is as if they are the same space. So it is possible that our DNA is operating as if it's all one cell, one strand of DNA, or at least each chromosome is operating as if it's the master chromosome of the entire body.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Yeah, I'm fascinated with that. And the reason in 1 simple second, right? 1 second, the amount of calculations and chemical changes with the different amino acids that happen in a second in the body in sync, it's in the trillions.
Oh my God,
and there can't be a mistake, right? Nope. There can't be not even one. You wouldn't be able to blink your eyes. You wouldn't be able to walk. You wouldn't be able to sit up. You wouldn't be able to. If anything went out of sync, every single amino acid knows exactly what to do. It blows my mind. I wanted to ask you this. Let's close out with a little bit of philosophy, if we may. And for some reason, philosophy and physics, science, and consciousness all go together for me, even though everybody wants to fight it. But I think it all goes together. Is this? I asked Deep Prasad this question Saturday night over on Coast to Coast, and I like to ask different scientific minds the same question, which is this: I want you to go back to the moment of your first contact, when you had this being in front of you. Okay, not what happened afterwards, not communication, not any. No, that's not what. That's great, but that's not what I want to know. I want to know what went through your mind as you tried to calculate with your pragmatic, black and white, educated, scientific mind what the heck was happening. Did you think you were going crazy? Did you think it wasn't real? How did you try to justify? How did you calculate? What were you thinking at that moment?
Yeah, well, I can tell you it was difficult, and it's a great philosophical question to ask. And by the way, for those of you that don't know this, physics came right out of philosophy. All old physicists were called philosophers, so we're just really extending that into a kind of more specialized field. But for me in that moment, I was actually sitting and leaning back against this arch structure at the exact moment that this being appeared inside of the space. And she was looking right at me. And my first impression was like, wow, who's this beautiful woman just staring at me? Like, honestly. And then it was like, wait, what? Is that a human? I got up and I walked over closer to her, and I literally, as I got closer, I'm looking at what she's wearing and the robe she's got on and the look in her eyes, and then I start to notice that the bone structure in her face is not human. Like, she doesn't have the end point to her eyebrow bones that most humans do. Like, literally the cavity of where her eye socket is goes further back towards her temples, and she's got these little bone like points on her cheeks and up her forehead, and like one down on her chin. And I'm like, instantly my brain is like calculating, is that possible with makeup? Could she do this? Like, is there a way that you could duplicate this with some kind of crazy mask or whatever? And
right.
And I had all of those thoughts going through my head. I was like literally assessing as fast as possible. I mean, and your mind can go through a lot of calculations really quick, of like, am I looking at a human being? And she had enough qualities, her nose, her eyes, even, were not that, they were a little bit larger, but not much larger than human. Like, most of her qualities, like you would glance at her and probably not even notice. You'd be like, oh, weird, somebody with some weird makeup on. But standing close to her and coming over to the range where I was about the distance where if I put out my arm and she put out her arm, our hands would have been touching. And from there, I could see in detail, like the way her facial structure was and the way her bone structure of her skull was. And it was definitely not human. Like, I could not think of any way it would be possible to remove the structure of how the Homo erectus eyebrow socket actually is built. Every human has it. Like, it's just it's indistinguishable. And also her robes that she was wearing, I've never seen material like it. It was like velvet meets satin with this like crazy light shimmer and these little points like where the threads themselves were actually glowing and these constellation geometries going down the front. And at the moment that I got that close to her, and as I'm processing it, I'm going, oh my God, I think I'm looking at an extraterrestrial being who's standing here with me and looking at me and wanting to communicate with me. And at that moment, she sends a message into my mind. And, you know, I've had telepathic exchanges with other humans plenty of times. You know, you have the same thought at the same time. You pick up like a feeling, and it's like, oh yeah, that this person is feeling some stuff right now. It's empathetic. It's light, and it's like very kind of loose and just there. But if you really go deep with somebody and really sit with them, you can kind of get a little deeper into direct exchanges and back and forth. But this was like she stuck a VR headset on my head, and sound and light and everything else just immediately, it was like just being put in a holodeck all of a sudden. And the way she spoke to me, and she said into my mind, the kind of English translation of it was, I know who you are. And the message, though, was not, I know who you are. The message was, here's a flash of us standing on this dock of a Starship bridge, and there's two big ships over next to us. And then here's us in this giant room that's like this council chamber room that's similar to the one where in some Star Wars movie I think I saw, where there was like these little pods that like came off the walls, and it was kind of like that, but different. And then there was this moments of like being in this hall with these huge windows looking down on a planet and standing together. And then there was a moment of me standing in this stone circle, and I have a sword in my hand, and I'm looking up, and there's a ship, and I can feel her in the ship. And there was all of these little moments that were like connections of our souls in the way that we knew each other, that she was just transmitting to me, so that I understood that she knew me as more than the human being that I am here right now, that she knew me as the soul that I am and the lifetimes that I've had and my galactic lifetimes in other worlds. And it was extremely powerful. I mean, it shook me to the bone. It was to the core. I could feel what she felt and see what she saw and knew it. And it was just immense. And my logical mind in that moment was just like, oh my God. And then there was no space to even be thinking, oh my God, because it's like, okay, I'm here. Let's do this. How do you operate now? You drop the human questioning logical BS and all of your process that wants to doubt everything. You just drop all that right now, and you actually show up and you be present and you quiet your mind. And you're there and you listen and you watch. And then, Jimmy, the thing that happened that really helped me is that I literally just dropped that. I showed up. I'm present. I'm there. I'm looking at her. I'm feeling so deeply acknowledged and sending her so much gratitude for this moment and this experience. And right then, these two guys walk up in the space. and they walk over to this little light panel thing that's in this space. And without getting into it in depth, it's hard to describe, but I have written about it in depth, and this particular art piece out in the middle of the desert. And I've also, done a very, very long interview about this entire experience with Ruben Langdon for his show's Interviews with Ed, which is on Gaia, and I believe actually it's coming out in about a week or so.
That's right.
So stay tuned for that. So you can learn more about this there, because I know we're running out of time. But at that moment, these two guys walk up into the space, and one of them's literally wearing a Stihl chainsaw hat. And like they both have, some Carhartts on to stay warm because it's in the middle of the desert, and they look at this like little light art thing, and they're just like, whoa, man, what is this? Holy crap,
Mm-hmm.
And then they look up at her, and they both their jaws are like open, and they're like, whoa, like this is some trippy, man, like
right.
Holy cow, what's going on? And they get lost back in this like little art piece thing, and she glances over at them, and she glances back at me, and she says into my mind with the same like just power, she says, "Not all of you are ready." and the imagery that came through with that was literally kind of like, I just watched this movie again recently, but if you've seen The Fifth Element, amazing film, and there's this part where the woman who's the fifth element, she looks up what war means, the word war. And it was like that because I got flashes of guys like this, and they're guys a lot like I grew up with in Western North Carolina, to be honest. Like I grew up with a lot of these guys, like in, backwoods Western North Carolina, up Caney Fork Road, and shout out to Caney Fork. and I saw the kid who like is forced to work on the farm but hates it, and so he acts out because he doesn't want to do what his parents do, and so his parents throw him into military school. He ends up in the military. He has his head shaved. He's grown up shooting off shotguns and shooting and hunting and things like that, and now he's told he has to hunt humans, and so now he's like got guns, and he's got a machine gun, and he's shooting people, and then he's in a tank and he's shooting people, and like the whole rollout of like the way that trauma in a family unit and the operative kind of behavior of some of the ways that we behave in our country leads people into these situations where they are massively self-destructive, hurting themselves, hurting other people, going to war, and that kind of thing. And it was such a beautiful reality check for me, because here I was, fully present, dropped in, surrendered, and then she gives me, like literally at that moment with these guys, it literally gave me everything I needed to satisfy the whining human that's like in the back seat right now, going like,
right,
is this really happening? Oh my God! Like, are we losing our minds? Like, are we? Did somebody give us drugs? Like,
well,
all
how
the
could
things,
you not? Right.
All the things that your brain would just be like, like what the fuck, And so, but I've had enough personal spiritual experience, and sat around the campfires with indigenous elders and done prayer runs for world peace and dropped in with people at really, really deep levels that I know how to quiet that busy, loud part of my mind and actually show up fully for the experience. And that's what I did. And what I said back to her, because I was so grateful for those guys being there, and I sent her the vision in my mind of hanging out with guys like that and doing keg stands, in high school, and them like shooting their guns off and getting in fights and whatever. But I understood where they're coming from and where they're going and what their particular perspective was. I could relate to them. I could have compassion for them. And boy, was I thankful that these guys were there for me right then. And I also said to her, and enough of us are. And I sent her the vision of all of these amazing people that I've seen, throughout my life who are ready. They're ready to become Starship commanders. They're ready to lead the next generation of youth and Padawan to become Jedi and guardians for the Earth. Like, this is where we're going, and we're going to get there, and we can get there together. She looked at me with so much love, and she bowed to me, and she sent me this wave that said, "Thank you for honoring your people." And it had such this powerful, overwhelming feeling of love. It almost brought me to my knees, and I bowing to her in just so much gratitude, and almost started crying. I could feel just like the waves rolling through me of gratitude for this moment. And it felt like I passed a test. And then I looked up and came up from my bow, and she was gone. And the two, guys with, standing there, are just look around for 1 second and she's gone. And they're like, what? Like they glance around the room. And of course that gets me to glance around the room, and like, nope. And she's not in here. I go out of this art piece, and there's literally no one, and it's endless desert, and there's nowhere she could have gone but teleport out. And that was the beginning of one of the most powerful nights I've ever had in any of my lifetimes on Earth. And I invite you guys to check it out on Gaia, on my interviews with Ed, and learn more of the rest of the story, because it goes on from there.
Thank you so much, Adam. What a great conversation tonight. I'll see you in a couple of a dozen hours or so tomorrow at 2 p.m. And it'll be like this never happened. And I'll see you tomorrow.
We'll just time portal right to that.
I know. We'll just do it all over again. Thank you so much, Adam Apollo. And it's adamapollo.com, guardian.is, and, of course, resonantscience.org. All of the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Adam, you are the very best, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Have a great night. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
And we'll see you in a couple hours. Have a great night. Adam Apollo. And with that, we went bumper to bumper. I've got to get out of here and run credits. And I will be with Adam tomorrow at 2 p.m. for the Disclosure Fest live stream that I host every Tuesday and Wednesday. All right. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2020 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, Adam Apollo. Tomorrow night, right here, Uri Geller. That's right. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.